Mark from jazzguitarlessons.net, and welcome to 5 Ways to Fail Gracefully Jazz Guitar Editions. So of course, usually I prefer to tell you what to do right when you're practicing jazz guitar scales, chords, tunes, and whatnot. So this is a special edition where I'll talk about what you should not do. And there's common traps, of course, like you can always get stuck in whatever area of your guitar, your fingerings or your arpeggios or whatever you're learning now. But at least if you can avoid these 5 ones that we'll talk about today, you'll be on your way to becoming a greater jazz guitarist. I was having a nice dinner and beers after with a great colleague, Robert Renman. Check him out, he's another fellow Canadian online guitar instructor. And some of these popped up during the conversation, and he told me, hey, you know what, you should really do a jazz edition of the mistakes you should avoid, whatever. So let's get going. The first mistake, or the first way that a lot of jazz guitarists fail, the first thing I want to discuss is practicing only chords, or practicing only soloing, or practicing only one thing. It might be arpeggios, or it might be any other thing that is kind of out of touch, out of balance with what you should be playing. You know these guys that they walk into a jam session and like... Then half an hour later... They're still blowing, or this other guy that will just walk at the jam session and go like, and that's all he knows, right? So to avoid being that player that only knows how to do one thing, you should aim for a balance. Of course, you should aim to practice a little bit of everything. Practice tunes, practice how to solo, practice how to comp, and of course, this means being a team player. Because if you go to a jam session, or if you start playing with other people, your role as a jazz guitarist will not to be, say you really like to solo and you solo all the time, you may wind up soloing only 10% of the time in your band, so the rest of the time you'll have to play chords. So this is a really good chance to learn things that you're not comfortable with and push you. So that was the first fail, which is practicing only one thing, say one chords or one arpeggios. The second way jazz guitarists fail gracefully, and I love the title of this video, is by learning songs they don't know. And by doing that, of course, when you learn a song, it's because you don't know it. But I mean, you learn a song that you don't know by ear, that you don't have a reference point, you don't have a recording. I don't want to say Autumn Leaves, all right? Everybody's heard Autumn Leaves on recordings, but I've seen people come to me and say, oh, I want to learn Autumn Leaves or Blue Bossa and whatever. And I'm like, well, what's your recording? Where did you first hear it? And people will say, well, I only learned it from the fake book. I saw the page and that's it. Advice, get recordings and listen. You have to have a good way that you... Okay, imagine if you're a rock and pop music player and you wish to learn a Beatles song, like Hey Jude or something. You would never just take the sheet music and not have any idea how the Beatles sang it first, right? You would actually get the recording first and then go to learning the song. So that's exactly the kind of mistake we have to avoid. People take the fake book and they consider this as like sight reading. Oh, I want to improve like reading chords, I want to improve learning melodies, but don't use a fake book for sight reading, because that's not really what it's meant. It's meant to give you the minimal information on a tune you already kind of know by ear. See what I mean? So either learn melodies for sight reading from a book that's totally unrelated, like violin study or flute studies, which is what I do, by the way. And for chords, learn, use Abersols, like things you have just a bunch of chord progressions with slashes. That's the way you practice improvising over changes. But using the fake book for songs you don't know is really, it's sketchy. So I think it's fair to say that people fail a lot at this. The third way people fail gracefully at learning jazz guitar, I think, is by not playing enough with people. It's a different reality sitting here in my studio. That is currently a mess, by the way, but you don't see this at the camera. It's a different thing. If you sit here with an Abersol or backing track, or you play alone and you kind of learn chord melody, once you're confronted with that bass player and that drummer, it's a totally different reality. So suggestion, go out to jam sessions and play with people in any circumstance you can. Even if your town does not have a heavy jazz scene, at least you can go to church and strum 3 chords. This will give you more solid time and a better musical understanding. In fact, even for the basic fundamental things in music that you already get, playing with other musicians is something I see a lot of my students not do in the long run. The fourth way people fail gracefully at not learning jazz guitar, I think, is not learning the melodies to the tunes. You know, this guy that walks into a lesson with me, he's like, oh, do you want to play Autumn Leaves? And yeah, we start playing and the guy goes... And I go, well, you know, maybe we could kind of start playing together, maybe play the melody, you know, and maybe see if we can play an introduction together and let the feel go. Or you got this other guy that will just start blowing like right away. So this comes back to practicing only chords or only soloing, in fact, right? So here's a solution, super easy. If you were in the shower singing, could you sing that tune? And if you say no, well, it means that you did not really learn the melody or the theme of the song. So make it a priority if you want to avoid that fail, to really learn songs, and I mean learning the songs. Usually also, if there's a Miles Davis recording of it, there'll be an introduction. This should be your template, your standard way of approaching a standard song, right? And think of other ways, such as the Tune of the Month Club that is on jazzguitarlessons.net or jazzguitarstore.net, to learn standards. It's a system that pushes you to learn one new tune every month. So say you might want to join a community band, or when I went to school to do my undergrad, we had to learn at least 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes up to 10 or 12 tunes per semester. So then you're covered, you're sure that you're going to learn materials. But if you're not in that situation, just seek coaching or advice, or get a book and make it a goal, make it a habit to cover one new song every 2 weeks, or one new song per week even. Last but not least, the fifth way I think people fail gracefully. I always feel like saying fail miserably at jazz guitar, but this one I think people fail miserably when they rush their lines when they're playing improvisation. So, you know that little... I had an analogy in a blog post called Time is of the Essence, which is fairly recent, and another video which is how to play fast, telling you how to use a metronome and everything, how to like develop your speed when improvising. Well, my analogy there is like, you know, you listen to a band on the corner, like the coffee shop, street corner, like it's pretty good, but you listen to the improviser and like, nah, I feel nothing. Or you improvise and you listen to it, like all the notes are there, all the arpeggios are there, but it just goes like, right? So here's the element, the magic elements, that probably the lines are rushed. Try playing a Wes Montgomery solo, or a Joe Pass lick, or like a Pat Metheny solo, and try playing this in bad timing, in poor rhythms. What's the results, you think? Well, it will sound like a drunken free jazz orchestra on an off night. That's what it will wind up sounding like. So to avoid that, don't play ahead of the beat. Always play on or behind the beat. And even there's culprits in the online community here, like you hear instructors, like I can't say who it is, but say you have a George Benson line or something, then you listen to the lessons like, oh, you have the click and the guy's kind of rushing the line. So everybody's culprit of that. When you're in doubt, just make sure you lay back more on the beat. Play with good drummers, of course, and practice using the metronome. And I want to make my point here. When I say practice using the metronome, I think I'm often misunderstood. I don't mean practice while using the metronome. I mean practice the skill set that you need to use a metronome, because, well, learn how to use the metronome. It's a skill to be able to follow the reference that is the metronome, not because you'll carry it on stage with you. I know we don't do that, and no, it's not going to ruin your rhythms and your pulse and your timing. Just use it as a tool to make you better at following a strict reference point, because the drummer is going to go ting, 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 ting. You kind of have to follow him, right? So if you rush or if you drag, he's not really going to follow you. So that's what the metronome's all about, is practicing things and seeing how well you can handle the stuff while keeping it in rhythm. And there's an obscure Pat Metheny video, probably was a workshop at Berkeley, I think it's not online anymore, where he's using the metronome, and it's just fantastic. He's kind of warming up on all the things you are, and it's amazing. So that's it for my last and most important. Rushing your lines is the biggest fail for jazz guitarists, I think. All right, so since I always prefer to under promise and over deliver, that's right. Here's a sixth one, so a bonus one, which is Baker's Dozen edition of how to fail gracefully at jazz guitar. The sixth one, the bonus one, is really about transcribing. I see a lot of beginners, well, even intermediate and even really good guys, they don't transcribe at all. They don't learn from recordings. And I can understand this because I will put something on for a student and go like, you have to learn this, like a West Lake or something. And they go like, yeah, right, I'm not going to be able to learn this. So perhaps we set the bar too high and we think that we have to learn it all, or we think we must always do like 2 hours of transcription every day or else it doesn't count. Well, it's not really the case, see? What you should be doing, I think, is setting clear expectations. So sometimes for me, I learn Pat Metheny stuff sometimes, and it's just, I give myself a tiny homework, which is say 1 chorus or 8 bars. And once you get started, say, well, at least I got the 8 bars. Doesn't matter if you continue or not. The only thing that matters is if you got started learning the solo. And the other thing, outside of setting a clear milestone, I think for a lot of beginners and intermediate, it's enough of an introduction to transcribing from recordings than to learn just the melody. So say you want to learn Have You Met Miss Jones, or you want to learn Autumn Leaves, you want to learn April in Paris, whatever song. Well, find a Miles Davis recording of it and try to play the melody, the head. Try to play it exactly like Miles. I think Autumn is a really, really good case in point on the Cannonball Adderley Something Else recording. And that's just phrase like the guy. And what will you be picking up from the recording? Well, the rhythms, of course, the melody you should kind of already know, and the inflection, the tone, the nuance, like the dynamics of the melody. And isn't that what you're learning when you're transcribing a solo? You're learning how to phrase and etc. Plus you're developing your ears like crazy. So I think that'd be a great way to get started transcribing for beginners, is just to set clear expectations and start learning just the melody, not even the solos. My name is Mark from JazzGuitarLessons.net, and this has been 5 Ways to Fail Gracefully, the Jazz Guitar Edition. I'll see you soon on the website.